three C's, the community comes together. That's how you can remember the three C's. Then you have impact. Impact is the conspicuous. It means you cannot avoid it. It's the conspicuous presence of influence and consequences that are meaningful and purpose to the individual as well as the group. Sustainability. Because if we can't sustain, we're not going to achieve the vision. If we don't sustain, people are going to lose interest. So sustainability is being able to continue our efforts without declining in our commitment, without declining in our enthusiasm, so that we actually have regular feedback to our stakeholders. And therefore, in transformation language, I introduced to you three ways in which we reframe the outcome in transformation. Number one is prizing. What is prizing? Prizing is giving of a prize. But in transformation, this means that you are discovering and proclaiming and finding worth in your contributions and input. So there's no one person that takes the prize. Everybody is prizing. Everybody takes the prize. Number two, valuing. Valuing is where you are recognizing the merits of the representations around the table and putting it together so that you are valuing everybody who has been prized. And lastly, growing. And you may think you know the definition of growing. Let me give you a new one. Growing refers to the specific expression of the power of individuals and groups to embrace the valuing process where people have been prized so that you achieve sustainability and enhancement by valuing continuous development of the vision, the ethics, the reality, and the courage. MashaAllah, MashaAllah. I give acknowledgements here to our Secretary General, and my boss is the middle person, the Deputy Secretary General, because lots of what I've shared with you has come from very lively discussions, because I've challenged them along the way as a nurse. And of course to Mr. Abdulaziz, who did some of my graphics. And I leave the last thought with you. A hero is an ordinary individual who finds the strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles. In other words, a hero does not make excuses. And I tell you, millennial nation of Malaysia, in each of you is a hero. Because in you, there is, you may sit there and think, I'm just an ordinary individual, but hang on, continue with the definition. Who finds the strength to persevere. This means you will be sustained in what you do. And you will endure despite overwhelming obstacles. So you will remove the obstacles in your way. And finally, don't shine to be seen, to be the greatest, to be Hollywood, Bollywood, and they go, well, you know, I'm above everyone else. No, don't shine for that reason. Shine so that others can see the way. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Mustafa has shared with us a very meaningful transformation. How do we transform our healthcare system. And he had given us the model of leadership, the diamond model of leadership, the 3 C's, and every one of us are leaders in our own rights. So he challenged us to actually the way forward to transform our healthcare system. So I think I would like maybe some of you, 1 or 2 questions, burning desire to ask him. I would give you a chance for 1 or 2 questions. Anybody? Yes. Anybody? Holding the head or putting up the hand? Anybody want to ask a question? Or a comment? Or a comment? If you don't, I have a question. If you don't, you have a question? I give you a chance first. Nobody want to ask a question?
Well, you know, I can do it, Dave, I can do it the other way. Yeah. I can just walk into the audience and give you a microphone and very easily, and I can get you involved and ask you a question as I come up, all right? How's that? Yes. Ma'am, what did you think about the diamond model of leadership? And while she's thinking, actually, I'm coming to you. Okay.
Yes. I have a question for Dr. Mustafa. From my observation, what is happening in Malaysia in this digital era. Now, nurses are supposed to be touching patients, sensitive, good communication, eye-to-eye contact, you know, talking to patients. That's our essence of nursing. But today we are living in era of technology where you said rightly, the moment the child is born, what is the immediate thing?
They get a mobile phone.
They get a mobile phone. Yeah, my 3-year-old grandson is now better than me trying to go into YouTube. and can get, you know, with a little finger. So my question is, our essence of nursing is to have a high touch for patient care. But what is happening now, right here, I do not know in your country, that we have a high technology with low touch.
Okay.
What we want is high technology and high touch. How do we come about making a transformation at this time where we have both?
Dave, that is an absolutely beautiful question. And I'm going to enjoy to respond to it. Because I ask you, how many nurses in the room? Let me see your hands. Pharmacists? No? All nurses? Physicians? Some physicians, yes. You can show your hand, shine. Others will see you the light and see the way. Medical students, yes, that's medicine, no problem. To answer the dame's question, the next time you go to the patient's bedside, just stop and pause for a moment. And in that moment, ask yourself this question. With your mobile phone in the pocket, stop and ask yourself this question. If this was my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, or my child, what would I want for them? Do I want a nurse that is always in the mobile phone, or do I want a nurse that's interacting with my mother, my father, my brother, my sister? Which one do you want? The one that is interacting, okay? And you know the Nike advert says, just do it, okay? However, we can't resist the mobile phone. So the mobile phone can actually be used in a different way, because you can save on your mobile phone health education, patient education, a diagram or pictures of diabetic gangrenous foot, the result of a stroke. You can actually have, because you studied in English and maybe your patients want to hear in Malay. So yes, you take the high touch with the high use of technology and say to the patient, okay, let's see, let's go onto the same website together and you can save it on your phone. And then we can, this is the example, and then you show them how to do screenshots so that they can save, and they will know that if I'm type 2 diabetes, I need to be careful with diabetic neuropathy because otherwise I could have gangrenous foot. I need to be careful with renal failure. I need to be careful with, what else? What else? Retinopathy, excellent, excellent. With eyesight, and so therefore, and all the adjustments to lifestyle. Because when there's one diabetic in a family, the whole family becomes diabetic because you eat a diabetic lifestyle. So that, Dame, is one way in which we can actually have high technology and high touch with the patient, because then you are touching the patient not only with your hands, but you're touching the patient in their mind as well as in their hearts, and they're saving it on their phone. And then watch when visiting time happens. When the relatives come, they will pull out the mobile phone and say, see what my nurse showed me today. Subhanallah. So that we use the mobile phones differently in the technology.
MashaAllah. Very, very good answer. You also can use the 3 C's that Dr. Mustafa gave. What are the 3 C's? Communication, collaboration, cooperation. Yeah, you can use this because we are team members. We cannot work alone. Thank you, Dr. Mustafa, for throwing lights from the dark tunnel. And I wanted this answer from you. Really, I was thinking to ask this question because this is happening. This is really happening, and it made me very sad to see that we are losing the touch, the real essence of nursing. We are talking to the patient. We actually communicate with the patient. And what is truly happening, especially in the paperless hospital, where they just look at the laptops and they're interested in finishing the reports. That is not the essence of nursing. Nursing is to communicate with patients. Use the 3 C's, use the mind and the head, the heart and the head. And then what he suggested just now was really fantastic. Let us do it. And now let me join you people to thank Dr. Mustafa with a full heartedly. And I wish to thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Mustafa and Madam Ramiza for the moderator. Now, I request Professor Dr. Ravi, Dean of Faculty of Medicine, on the stage, and the today's speaker, Professor Dr. Mustafa, on the stage to give a gift for the token of appreciation.
Say Malaysia, not say China.
Thank you, Dr. And thank you, Dr. Mustafa. Now, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Ravindran, the Dean Faculty of Pharmacy, to share his views about the healthcare industry. Faculty of Medicine, to share his views about the healthcare industry in Malaysia and beyond. So, to introduce him, Professor Dr. Ravi is an obstetrician and gynecologist by training. He believes that the potential of anyone is limitless provided and educational opportunities are provided. He has worked in many areas of Malaysia in the public sector and trained for his specialist qualification while working in the public sector in the busy maternity service. He has dual specialist qualification and has been awarded many fellowships by distinguished bodies. Currently, his passion is motivating medical students to achieve their full potentials. Without further delay, I would like to Professor Dr. Ravi to give a talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to talk on some aspects of the changing healthcare industry in Malaysia, and I think I will be addressing some issues of the new generations, right, that was alluded to just now in Dr. Mustafa's talk. One, we know there are increasing number of doctors. So the medical students there are already fighting. Will I have a job when I qualify? Right? So you can look here, from 2012 to 2014, it increased from about 27,000 to 33,000 doctors. So by the time you qualify, maybe we are producing about 40,000 doctors. But I think it won't happen because there's a strict quota now being applied. Who is producing these doctors? Public universities, private universities, and foreign universities. So you can see that in 2012 onwards, after 2012, the private universities overtook the public universities in the production of undergraduate medical doctors, because the public universities then focused on postgraduate programs, producing the specialists. The private universities undertook this production of undergraduate medical doctors. And of course, you have a number of foreign graduates who still continue to come. You know that various countries have different scenarios. Some are cheaper than education in Malaysia, so they go there if they don't get a place there, and so on. Right? So we have about 4,740 doctors or so coming back to the country every year. So if I ask a student, anybody who comes for an interview for a place, why do you want to be a doctor? They will give all these reasons. I want to serve mankind. I want to help the sick. My parent had a serious illness. I want to be able to help another person like that who has an illness. People are thankful when you treat them. I want to work in the rural areas and help the poor, and doctors are trusted. These are the good reasons to be doctors. But hopefully, you remain true to your reasons after you qualify. But sometimes, the same person who says, I want to work in the rural area, the day he graduates and is posted to a remote area to work, he says, I will appeal to come back to KL. Right? So now, please remember that. I know, and I think I should quote the examples of the midwives. Those days in Malaysia, the single rural midwife who was posted to a remote clinic bidan or clinic, whatever clinic, even in Sarawak, Sabah, went and stayed there and served the public. They did not abscond from their post like it happens in many other countries. So take the example of the nurses, right? Now, these are the other reasons some of them will be saying. I want to be rich. My brothers and sisters are doctors. My parents want me to be a doctor. I want to be a doctor no matter what. From small, I wanted to be a doctor. Doctors have a high status. Now, I'm very careful when people tell me these reasons. Right? They may not be very suitable to be a doctor. So, you choose a university. And how did you choose that university? Whether Masa or anywhere else? One will be your parent will have some influence on the choice. Your sponsor or scholarship body may have some influence on where you end up. Or your choice. And usually you would look at the reputation, you would look at the quality, you would look at the cost. Sorry. You would look at the cost, and you would look at employability of that, reputation of that university, peer pressure, and location. So, The reason, although there is an increasing number of doctors, my argument to you is what has not changed? The desire among Malaysians to be a doctor has not changed. I will still get the full quota of 200 students a year who want to do medicine, at least in this university. That has not changed. If this increasing number of doctors waiting for housemanship place has influenced that, it has not changed. And what has not changed, as mentioned just now, the doctor-patient relationship has not changed. Despite your mobile phones, despite the technology, the patient still values the human touch from the doctor or the nurse. That has not changed. So the doctor-patient relationship is not simple, right? It is not just between a doctor and a patient. Well, if you look at a doctor, some of the factors will be training, experience, the mentor, the supervision, how he is developing as a doctor, that influences. If you look at the patient has also changed. The patient of those days is no more the patient of today. They are better educated, the language, the culture, the understanding, all that must be considered. And of course, where you work in the hospital, whether the accredited hospital or the community, whether they accept doctors, modern medicine, and so on. And you can see that ethics is bolden. Again, I stress that a good doctor must be an ethical one. A good doctor does not make decisions based on his self-interest, but he makes the decision because of the patient's interest, even if it affects him. So what has changed then? What has changed? I think the characteristics of the persons becoming doctors has changed. It has changed from the time I wanted to become a doctor and started my training. Because you can know of the Generation X, Generation Y, and the Generation Z. Right? They have different characteristics. Reason is because of the media and the technology development currently, and we are also self-driven by it. And you find that the Generation X had more education of greater caliber at that time, and they were more focused. Right? So that characteristic of doctors has changed. I have to accept that my medical students of present day will not be like the medical students of my generation. And I cannot keep telling them that, you know, those days I was like this, why are you like this? Times have changed. The patients also have become more connected, isn't it? They also can do the famous Dr. Google and find out their own diagnosis or come to you with your own information, which you have to respond to. So they are more connected, you are more connected, and you have to come to a mutually good decision. And in the healthcare system, now in Malaysia, there are cluster hospitals. So even hospitals that are not so well utilized, the district hospitals, are all now clustered together with a specialist hospital. So the specialists from that hospital will go to the cluster hospital, perform their work there, and come back while leaving the patient in the cluster hospital for aftercare. So that is a good development and something that we have to adapt to. The ethics of healthcare behavior, I feel, sometimes has not changed in the sense that we have become too dependent on technology, right? This is from midwifery. Too much of dependence on the CTG monitor without knowing how to interpret and without keeping in mind the patient at the other end of the CTG from where the recording is come. What are all the risk factors in that person. So if you do that, then you have a lot of medical legal issues. Sorry. Well, unethical behavior. The doctor who exploits the patient because it's of an unequal partnership. The patient is not at the same level as the doctor. But now we are encouraging equal partnership between the patient or the doctor. You cannot have a superior relationship. Now, just to give you some glimpse of where we are going, science is changing. All right? What is this? This is CRISPR. The scientific term is clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats, or Cas9. It's a whole mouthful of term. But this is the current technology. This is actually going into genetic engineering. Now you evaluate a disease, you find out the genetics of it, the molecular basis of it, and then you look what is it that causes this disease, and then you cut off the disease-causing part and replace it with the non-disease-causing part, in simple terms. Sounds simple, but it's complex. But it is done in the lab and then put back into the patient. So this is coming. All right? How do you know that? This is experiments to actually develop muscles for those patients with muscular dystrophy. We know that patients with muscular dystrophy will die at the age of 30 or 40. But in this university, they are looking at animal experiments to see whether that modality can be applied for the treatment of muscular dystrophy. Gene therapy for muscular dystrophy. This is a patient with muscular dystrophy, and now this person will undergo that treatment. Donor organs from other species. We are always short of donor organs. Now we have got now technologies to try and transplant from other species, but again, using ethical principles. Of course, you can see this, an unethical issue. There's a move now. All right. This is a prosthesis that has been developed, right? Much more modern than compared to our old prosthesis that we are used to. It's built to actually do play functions on the computer. Next. The artificial pancreas is also here for diabetics. It can be developed soon. Next. And simple things like those with old age tools, for eating and drinking can be modified so that even if they have a tremor, it doesn't trouble them too much. Right? They still maintain their dignity. The non-touch thermometer is already here. Next. So there are lots and lots of technologies that are coming. Medicine will change, right? You can download apps, as this doctor is telling, for everything. Well, it may be true in the future. Next. So I want to now bring you back to reality. When you come to a university, next slide, please. You have got certain analysis of characteristics of successful universities. Can you keep pressing? But very importantly is the local, national, and international visibility. And remember this, add value locally and acknowledge standing within their own institution, the faculty. All right? So I think that is what we should be striving to, right, in any successful university. Now, after having gone through all this, I'm now giving you the bad points, right? There have been doctors student doctors who have been caught cheating. They did not tell the truth when they entered the university. They qualified as doctors, they started working as doctors, and then they were found out. And this is an example from India, which barred the student doctors from continuing to practice. What does it tell you? You have to be honest from day one, right? You cannot do otherwise. Well, because of this increasing number of doctors, there was at one time a move to restrict the student intake. At the same time, the response was Health Ministry can absorb 5,300 housemen a year. We produced about 4,007 or something like that. So it's still possible to absorb all of that. Now, some of the doctors who qualify have got fitness to practice evaluation because of certain problems. All right. Now, you can find that those who actually had illness was this. All right. There were 2 doctors who were stopped from practice because of illness. Provisional registration 2, that is houseman, and needing further treatment 6. So these are small numbers still, but this is something doctors must remain healthy. And these were medical review panel recommendations. Not fit to practice again, cessation of full registration, 30 doctors a year. Cessation of provisional registration, that means 5 housemen were stopped from practice, and so on. So the numbers are still worrying, a total of 339. But I think what is most worrying is your ability to take stress. Right? Stress can be depression, even dismissal from service. But it is a stressful occupation. The minister says many medical students are not prepared for a doctor's life. So how do you prepare yourself? Have a holistic education. You must look at your religious values. You must look at your ethical values, and you must have knowledge about your field itself, of course. And you must know how to time manage. Again, dishonesty. Doctors can sometimes be taken to court for being dishonest. So, we live in an area that is very risky. It's like walking on a tightrope with the crocodiles waiting below you to open their mouths, to swallow you up. And you must remember that you work in a profession in which there is a lot of risk. Every single day, every patient faces a risk from nobody else but you. When you pass a catheter wrongly, when you inject a drug wrongly, when you cannulate arterial lines wrongly, you give a wrong drug, you apply the tourniquet and forget about the tourniquet, the patient loses the limb. All this still happening. All right? So you must remember that the patient is under threat of harm from you. So you have to be competent. And of course, we always compare ourselves to the airline industry. We thought that the airlines were unsafe in 2014 because in that year there were 2 Malaysian airlines that crashed. And suddenly there was a focus on airline safety. But actually, if you look at worldwide literature, the death rate from airline accidents is 1 in 10 million. Healthcare is 1 in 300. All right, so much more. But you think nothing of walking into a hospital. Right, so you better be careful. Don't just ask to be admitted. As a doctor, you must be competent. Right, you must be competent. You can just press it. Because the patients trust their lives with you. Anyway, it's okay. Go to the next slide. Yes, we're running out of time. Now, housemanship, again, press, continue pressing. There's a lot of challenges. All these are the challenges of horsemanship. It's the first year of practice, first 2 years of practice after you finish. Next. We can talk about this in detail at some other forum. So finally, when you qualify and when you practice, we are trying to make sure you practice safely. All right? Next. Now be aware, next. When you enter medicine, there's a lifelong commitment. You must develop all these values, and you have to prepare yourself to stand up, be humble, to interact, to communicate verbally and written form, and to be an ethical, honest doctor. Next. What do you need? I think most important, you need time management skills. I think for every profession, you need that. There are only 20. You need thought organizational skills. You need goal-oriented targets. You must seek feedback and make maximum use of the resources. Develop your soft skills. Next. Respect, honor, discipline. I think it goes very well in line with what I spoke about. Next. This is, I'm just giving you an example of the future healthcare system. I published this in a book that is going to come out next year. This is called a proposed Malaysian antenatal care system. And overarching principle of this is audit, right? And it looks at making the healthcare system more efficient and more economical because healthcare resources are now finite. So this is a vision of the future. And I ending with a quote from a very old textbook, Harrison's textbook of medicine, but I think it's worth reading, especially the second paragraph. He who uses whatever characteristics of a physician with courage, humility, and wisdom will provide a unique service for his fellow men and will build an enduring edifice of character within himself. The physician should ask of his destiny no more than this, and he should be content with no less. Right? Monetary value is not a consideration when you go into healthcare. Next. So my take-home message is the doctor-patient relationship is still the cornerstone to good clinical practice. That has not changed in the healthcare. Although new technology will change, and you have to embrace it, you cannot avoid it. But the other, in view of this being adult learning mind, is some doctors may not stick with medicine after graduating. You may decide that I want to do something else. So my advice to that type of person is still do your housemanship for 2 years. Get your registration with the Malaysian Medical Council and then consider other degrees like the MBA or the Bachelor's of Biomedical Science if you want, or a Master's of Biomedical Science, so that you are into the research field, right? And that may be your cup of tea. So as adults, you need to continue learning and exploit the full potential that is in you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dato. Due to time constraints, only one question is allowed to ask from the. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much, Dato. In continuation to the adult learning month talk, the second talk, Unleash the Entrepreneur in You, is going on in level 1 auditorium. So those who are interested, you can join that. Otherwise, I'll end this session. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere thanks and appreciation to the speakers and guests of their valuable time and attending the program today. Thank you once again.
You as a lawyer. You know why? Tell you, don't tell us. Tell you.我们是比较一点两种情况的镜头。
تفضلوا. حتى ما مش عارف كتير. مرة شكله مرة مرة قدام الديزاستر.